Hi guys, welcome to Let's Talk BD, the official podcast of the BD School, the first educational platform entirely dedicated to business development. Here we interview business development professionals working in the field every day, as well as startup founders, so they can give you all the insights, tips, and best practices to help you become a better business development professional. Let's get ready for the next episode. Hello everyone! Welcome back to a new episode of Let's Talk BD podcast. Today we have a new guest, Mafalda. Hello Mafalda, how are you?
Hi Lucia, how are you? Thanks so much for having me today.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So guys, Mafalda works for a super cool company called Wonderway, and all they do is sales training, right? So you provide the tool for that. So maybe we can start with that. You can tell us a little bit more about your job, and then we're going to talk a little bit more in specific about best practices, tips, do's and don'ts when training commercial training. So let's get started.
Awesome. Sounds great. So yes, as you mentioned, Wonderway is a sales enablement platform that connects with CRMs. And that's your pitch slap right there. And what I do is I'm managing the customer success and the BD department. And I also collaborate with marketing. I also have 2 podcasts, one about interviewing buyer personas, another one about training mistakes, where Lucia will also be our guest. So don't miss out the episode with Lucia.
Indeed.
And so I basically, I do a bit of everything. It's normal in a startup that we wear many hats. That's basically what I do.
All right. So, guys, as we mentioned, so Wonderway, it's really all about training specifically sales teams. So let's get started more on the sales training aspect, right? So, of course, you worked with a lot of different companies and probably you've seen a lot of different ways of training sales teams, right? Do you see or have you recognized some of the best practices when training commercial teams? Or maybe you have some examples of companies that do it really well. And maybe if you can tell us something more about that.
I would go the other way, which is I can tell you the mistakes that almost every company does.
Great.
So that if you're listening to this and you're making those mistakes, stop now. So
nice.
So which you can turn into best practices. So we can start with onboarding, right? So onboarding not only salespeople, but any position is a very critical moment because it can make the difference between having a very successful employee or not, or having the person actually quitting after 2 weeks for being too overwhelmed and stressed. So onboarding should be really efficient, not only because you want your salespeople to start producing results as soon as possible, right? And also because of employee satisfaction. So something that I see a lot of companies doing is a lot of content for the first 2 weeks. And I'm sure companies do with the best intentions, which is they want to inform as much as they can their employees about everything. But the problem is if you mix relevant content with not so relevant content, you are overwhelming people because they don't know how to prioritize. They just think everything is super important and they try to learn everything. And in the end, they don't learn much because it's way too much. And usually it's a lot of theory as well. And if we don't apply the theory, we will forget. So there are statistics that I don't know if it's 70% of the onboarding content is forgotten after a couple of days. So, what I really recommend is don't overwhelm people with content which is a nice to have. You can give nice to have later, or if you can tell the people where the nice to have content is in case they are curious, but definitely don't make it mandatory on the onboarding. And always mix theory with practice.
Totally.
So, yeah. So don't especially, those companies which have 10 different solutions or 10 different parts of the solution. And each one is way more complicated than the other with a lot of, technical words that salespeople don't really understand. And then they give a lot of videos about this kind of product that, we don't understand what's going on in there. And then sometimes they have a quiz or even nothing. And then, did you get it? Let's start selling this. I mean, you're putting a lot of stress on your salesperson because they didn't understand half of it, right? So this is something that you really should start avoiding. So I would say teach one product or teach the persona, and then ask your SDR to write an email, right? You don't have to send the email, but the writing of the email is a really good assessment to see if the person understood and for the person to put something into practice. And if it's a good email, he or she can send it and maybe book a call, who knows? But definitely don't overwhelm your newbies with a lot of theory and a lot of content with no assessments and practical exercises in place. That's definitely a no-go, because then they will have to revise. Once they start prospecting, they have to go back and learn everything again, and revise everything again because they forgot. It's how it works.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I can totally see that. I'm very happy that you're mentioning this because we are onboarding a new team for a variety of functions in marketing and business development. And for this time, I really decided to revolutionize the way we're doing the onboarding training precisely for this reason, because I felt that in the past, the team was getting too confused, and after 1 month, they would not remember absolutely anything.
Yep.
So what we did, well, obviously, we provide business development training. So that's our main product, right? So that's exactly how we set it up this time. So we train them as if we would train our customers. And we let them do all the exercises that we make our customers do. And we figured that was the best way to experience our product, but also to see it from the perspective of our customers, right? So they also had to do a lot, one part of the training is customer research, right? So they actually had to do that, which was the perfect way to understand their customers, but also learn how to do that thing. So
that's a great example.
It totally resonates. I'm very happy that we take this box now.
Absolutely, really absolutely. And also, as you mentioned, and you're doing really well, is, you and me, we have the luxury that our employees can experience the product, right?
Indeed.
We sell to salespeople. So my product and your product, we can be used on onboarding and training our own employees, which makes it tangible.
Yes.
And we should definitely leverage that luxury, because when you're selling to engineers some API solution, cloud system that I have no idea what they do, our employees cannot experience that because they are not the buyer persona. Mm-hmm. So it makes training more difficult. Not impossible, but more difficult. In our case is, I'm going to train you on my product. There you go. That's product training right there. Yeah. What else do you want to know? This is what we offer, right? So we should never overlook this luxury that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. And, now you said something that actually got to my mind. One objection that I often hear when we train customers, right? Or when we're doing lead generation and we go to customers. So one objection that they often bring is look, we don't care of having an external training, because at the end of the day, our team needs to be trained on the product. Now, my way to responding on that is that, of course, your product is important. That's obviously what they're selling. So they need to understand what they're selling. But you also need to put your team in the condition of first understanding your customers, right? And for this, 100%. There are frameworks that you can use, right? So yes. I'm always a little bit fighting with that, because well, of course, you can teach them their product, but we can really help them and really get them up to speed in terms of really understanding their customers.
Yeah.
So do you have you experienced that with your clients, right? So yes. That they focus too much on the product and not really on what the product does for their customers?
Yes. I would say that's one of the most common mistakes I've seen in my life, everywhere, not only our customers, but the companies I worked for in the past, or when I speak with people, which is people give too much training on product and very little on persona, or sales techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And especially companies that have technical products, because they know their product is complicated, they really want to, they feel scared that the people don't understand. The thing is, like, sometimes you give hours and hours of training on the product and the people still don't understand because they don't understand which challenges does this solve and why are customers buying. And that's actually what you need to know. I don't need to know how an integration API, whatever works. I that's not relevant. I need to understand that this solution will save, I don't know, 20 hours of work per week to a director of engineer, or I need to understand that that by using this solution, they have more data available to make decisions. I don't know. Like that's what an SDR needs to know, and to a certain extent an AE as well, because usually when you have very sophisticated products, the AEs also have the help of solutions or sales engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I definitely, something I see, it's that most people don't understand their personas.
Yeah.
They don't receive enough training on personas. And that's why the outreach is completely, not targeted, not relevant. They don't. They won't see results. Like no.
Yeah, and then you see that, like, not only in the outreach, right, but also when you actually manage somehow to get the interest of your prospect.
Yeah, for some miracle, even with that email, for some miracle, you managed to book a call. Yes.
Yeah, and then like you see that these people get into calls and then they don't manage to get anything out of it, right? And they're like, oh no, but it wasn't a good lead. It was like,
yeah, exactly.
How do you know?
Was just the CTO of the major company, but sure wasn't a good lead. Yeah, I've heard that in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. But another thing that I experience often, like when I train business development teams, unfortunately, these mistakes early on in the onboarding and really this focus on the product really gets ingrained in the mindset, right?
Yes.
So you're talking to the business development teams, and then if I ask them, for example, okay, can you tell me what is the main value proposition of your product or service, right? So why do your customers buy from you? And then they start immediately pitching the features.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's not my question. I didn't ask you this.
You're acting like a parrot that just replicates what it heard in the past. Absolutely. Yes, that happens a lot. Like,
totally.
yeah.
And so do you have or maybe also when you train your teams and so on, have you found a perfect formula to change this mindset, right? Because of course it's also up to the person, right, on the receiving end to be open to switching, right, their mindset. But are there maybe some, I don't want to call them tricks because it's not really tricks, but more like some things that you did that really worked well to change the mindset of the team?
So with my teams, it's easier because they are interested to see results, and I before and now I'm their manager, so for me it's easier to change the mindset of my team. But that basically, with my teams, I just give an intense training on persona. Like I say, forget the product, let's talk about personas, and then I ask them about challenges and how to tie each solution to the challenge. I asked them to write the email. I corrected those emails. So I do a lot of email. I review a lot of emails from my teams. But something that I recommend people to do is, especially on role plays, in which this is another mistake I see. And once again, especially in more technical products where people don't really understand the product they're selling, is let's do a cold play, play or role play, or let's do a discovery role play with one another. So you have a salesperson doing a role play with another salesperson about the product none of them understand. So what we're gonna get? What we're gonna get out this role play? Nothing, absolutely nothing. So what I recommend you to do is do a role play with a sales engineer. They understand the product really well. They understand the objections. They are there to help the AEs to overcome the objections and to try to close the deal. use your sales engineering. They are the best resource you can have when you have a technical product. So do role plays with them. If you have, if you're selling to to the engineering department, ask the nicest engineer in your company to do a role play with you maybe once a month, because you don't want to bother them that much. But once a month role play with an engineer worth more than 10 role plays with other salespeople,
Totally.
Once again, I have the luxury that we can do role plays with one another because we sell to salespeople.
Yeah.
But no, it didn't happen in my previous company. My previous company were selling to quality assurance, engineering, product people. So doing a role play with one another doesn't bring anything, or not much.
Totally. Yeah, also because then you really fall into your own way of doing things, right? Which might be wrong in the first place, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, for example, one thing that we do with our customers. So sometimes we have like group classes, like if we do the individual training, meaning they're just individuals taking the training, but then they're in a class. Oftentimes we have the luck, of course, of having within these groups people that actually fall into the buyer persona of each other. So that's easier. And then they can do the role plays together. But oftentimes what we do is actually to bring someone from our network that we know fits their buyer persona. And then we let them role play directly with this person, because they probably have the needs and then they understand actually what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But they really have like really hands-on experience of how it is to run a sales call and so on. Really, given that for us, really the most important thing, just like you do, is really understanding the buyer persona that you have in front of you and not only your product, which,
and show them the emails you write to see their reaction, in the
exactly.
End, the podcast I do about buyer personas, in the end of each episode, I showed them a prospecting email that was written to their department, and I asked them, what do you think? And it's very funny. Like, sometimes they're very harsh, sometimes they're very nice. It depends a lot on the quality of the email. But it's like, I don't know, those 5 minutes, I think they are really, really worth watching, because you have the reaction of your buyer persona to your email and see if it speaks to them or not, and why not if it doesn't, So yes, that's,
Totally.
I think that if companies would invest like more time on speaking with buyer personas, that would make a huge difference, And come on, you have customers, right? So I hope, company has customers. I'm sure you have 1 or 2 customers that have a great relationship with you, with your customer success manager. Like, definitely interview them for your SDRs or AEs. Show them emails,
Totally.
If something happens, like the recession hit, right? So the priorities change. So when an event happens, like COVID, a major event, something that it affected your buyer persona, probably the challenges and priorities, they shifted as well, or they became some of them more important than others. So when something major happens, and maybe the information you have about your persona is outdated, this is a great time to actually ask what's going on for research, but also maybe you can help your customers, right? So maybe you can find new ways to help your customers and not letting them churn.
Yeah.
There is a huge benefit in speaking with customers, not only, to give relevant info to the salespeople, but also to give relevant info to the product people, to give relevant info to your customer success management department, marketing as well, right? So marketing needs to know if they have to adjust the messaging. So it's, I think the whole company benefits from these chats, conversations, interviews, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. I really couldn't agree more. And, I have another question more on the challenges side, of the end users, right? So let's say the salespeople that get the training, right? So one thing that happens very often with the people listening, most likely, is that they actually don't get training from their company. So when we started
at all
school, when we started the BD school, we ran a survey. We surveyed thousands of business developers, and turns out that the majority of them didn't get formal training training from their companies, right? So, and then there is also this misconception that business development is something that you learn on the job. Why do you think is that? Why do you think companies don't train people? And this is something that you found also with your customers, and how difficult it is to convince them to train people.
I think, not training at all, it's quite insane in my opinion.
Horrible. I agree.
How do you expect to have results if you don't even train the basics?
Indeed.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that, because that's insane. Because one thing is bad training, but at least you have some training in place. Yeah. I understand bad training is you want to do your best, but for some reason you don't know how to do it properly. But not giving it all. For me, I would love to interview these people and understanding what's going on in their minds.
Yeah, right. I agree.
But maybe, so my assumptions, and once again, this is just me, talking out loud, but like, maybe they don't have resources. Maybe they don't have the knowledge to, maybe they're in a hurry, which this is quite often. Sometimes is they have a training, an onboarding in place, and then they want to rush through the training, which is a huge mistake. And it means the training is not good, because if you do a practical training as you should be doing, you're not rushing, right? So you teach one persona and one solution, you write the email. You can send the email right away. So what are you rushing? Like you learn another persona, another challenge, another product. You make a cold call to a not so good account so you don't burn good accounts, but maybe you can book this account, right? So the thing is, probably they want to rush it so badly that people then they don't learn and they don't land many things.
Totally.
Yeah. So I would say that. I would say that rushing, wanting to rush and wanting to see the results as soon as possible, which you can't without training.
Exactly.
Probably lack of resources. We are a small company. We have to start SAP. Big companies have the luxury that they can wait a month of onboarding, but we can't, which is all of these are really fallacies. I mean, definitely a bad practice for any size of company,
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because then you really enter in this vicious circle, right? Because that's also the other thing which I don't understand is like, not only they don't give training to their commercial teams, but then indeed, as you said, they expect to get results relatively fast. So you see that they really set highly unrealistic goals for their teams, which causes like a lot of anxiety and stress on the people, which then stop like doing what they're supposed to do, or maybe they try to do 10,000 different things without like structure or anything like that.
Absolutely. And they will never want to talk about sales again. Exactly. I've seen that. I have sometimes speak with people that, I tried 6 months a sales job, never again. This is not for me. And then when I dig deeper, like I was like, okay, yeah, you had a horrible, you didn't have onboarding at all.
Yeah.
And then you had the really terrible onboarding. You were supposed to perform. You obviously didn't. And now you think you're a bad salesperson or you're not tailored for it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But like sales is one of the only professions, or one of the few ones that we don't have like a college degree or anything. Yeah. Now you start seeing having like some classes, but until very, very recently, you didn't have any college degree or anything. So people have this misconception that you learn on the job. Yeah. Whereas other professions, like if a doctor would learn on a job, I mean, imagine a lot of people would be dying. A pilot, you don't want a pilot to learn on the job. So why do you want your salespeople to learn on the job? Of course, they're gonna burn leads. Like, like it's so obvious.
Yeah, totally. All right, but then on a more positive note. So let's say here now there are some people listening, and there will be probably a lot of business developers, but a lot of founders, and I really hope also some of the managers of these people, right? And maybe they're thinking of improving their training or even giving a training. Yes. What do you think are the top 3 elements that make a great training for a commercial position?
So practice, in the sense, not learning on the job, but the first one is whenever you give training, give a short training which is actionable and with an assessment that has to do with it. So you can record So if you want to train on cold calling, you can record a video, or you can do a role play, or you can cold call tier C accounts. Or if you give training on email, the assessment should be writing an email, even if you don't send it in the end. So definitely short trainings, like in terms of theory, and then an action. Another short training, and then an action. So definitely mix a lot of theory with practice. That's the first one. The second one is, and I already said this, but it's like, focus on your persona, please. Like, most of the training should be on the people you're selling to. Not so much on the product, even though product is also relevant, but definitely on the persona. That's the third one. And then the fourth one is definitely have small goals, especially on the onboarding, before you have the hard KPIs like number of bookings. Also have small goals during the onboarding, so you track if the person knows what she or he is already doing. So if you wait until a month or 2 months where do you have like the quarterly goals, and then they're missing, you already missed 2 months of opportunity to iterate. So definitely check if the person is on track from very early on. And that's very easy. You can already count how many emails did the person write, the quality. If you have a tool to assess the like Wonderway or any of our competitors, it doesn't matter. But if you have a tool that you can check the emails that you write, that you can check the LinkedIn profile, and you can score them, and then you see if a person has bad scorings during the onboarding, means that he or she needs more training. So obviously this person will book less meetings than a person who has a lot of great scorings and already wrote great emails, because they're more likely to convert. So these, I would say, the three things. So just to recap: practice, after short theory, a lot of practice, persona, and small miles, soft KPIs as well, not only hard KPIs from day one.
Great. Nice, Mafalda. Thank you so much. Well, as we're chatting, I'm just getting a lot of other questions, but I think we should keep it for another episode. Because I think we both really love chatting, but for the sake of indeed the short and effective training, maybe we can keep the rest of the conversations for the next one. Thank you so much, Mafalda. This was
thank you.
Insightful and fun. And I hope you guys got insights on training your.
And if anyone listening has any question for me, or anything wasn't clear, just write me on LinkedIn. I'm super happy to chat there.
Awesome. I was about to ask you actually if we could share the LinkedIn profile, but that's done. And guys, we will also link below in the description, of course, the link to the podcasts of Mafalda, so you can have extra insights. You're going to see me also there very shortly. So looking forward to see you on Mafalda's channels as well. And Mafalda, thank you so much. We will keep chatting today, I guess. But yeah, thanks a lot for the insights.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lucia.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. See you next week.